Have you ever heard the saying, you can never have it all? Whether it is your dream job or that perfect relationship or being in good health, I found that there are certain areas of life that have an outsized impact on your overall happiness. And I'm here to tell you that while you may not be able to have it all the time, you can certainly have 2 out of 3. Welcome to Monday through Sunday, the podcast dedicated to helping you have the career and relationships you dream of and a life you don't need a weekend to escape from. My name is Logan and I am your host. And today we are going to be talking about the happiness equation, which is a term that I've dubbed specifically for this episode, and how mastering the choose to rule in your career, relationships, and health will allow you to have it all, even if you can't have it all at one time. Think about it as having your cake and eating it too. Or more specifically, having your cake, eating it too, and the calories don't count. Talk about a win-win, right? So in today's episode, we're going to unpack the choose to rule, talk about how you can control the controllables to maximize happiness in your life, and how to deal with the things that you cannot control while still maintaining your peace. We're also going to talk about the happiness equation and how you can give yourself a happiness report card to create an action plan for yourself and make sure that you always have 2 of your top 3 categories locked in to live your happiest life, no matter what chaos could be going on in the world around you. So if you're ready to jump off the hot mess express and take control of your own destiny, keep listening. This episode is for you. Welcome to Monday through Sunday. I'm Logan.
I'm Sanam.
And I'm Lane. We're best friends, the founders of Blossom Brands, and the hosts of this podcast.
We can't wait to take you behind the scenes of running a 7-figure agency with our best friends.
We're sharing our mistakes, our lessons learned, and giving you tactical advice to build the career, the business, and the relationships you dream of, and a life you don't need a weekend to escape from.
So let's get balanced and let's get down to business. Welcome to the show.
Okay, so to kick things off, I'm going to expose myself a little bit here. And I'm speaking to the girls here because obviously. Do you remember in college hearing about the 3 Bs rule? This was a rule that my friends and I always used when we were getting dressed up and getting ready to go out to the club, which by club, I mean the frat party down the street. And the 3 Bs rule was something we used when we were putting together our outfits to make sure that we didn't look too slutty. So when you were putting together your outfit for a night out of your 3 most valuable assets, which were your boobs, your butt, and your back, you could only pick 2 of those 3 to show off at a given time. So for example, if you were wearing a really low cut top, you could pair that with a short skirt, but you needed to cover your back. On the flip side, if you were wearing a really short dress, it could have a low back, but your boobs couldn't be falling out. So the 3 Bs rule was basically to leave a little air of mystery and show off the goods while keeping the frat boys wanting more, which, oh my gosh, I just like cringe saying that now because it sounds so stupid, but it was a rule. I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but in the late 2010s, when I was in my party girl era, this was all the rage. And it was always really obvious when a girl went out to the club and she was showing all 3 of her Bs. Those were the kind of outfits that you were like, ugh, like that's just not quite it. However, if you were only showing 2 of your Bs or 1 of your Bs, you still looked really hot and cute without looking like a slob kebab. And I have no idea what triggered this memory for me. I was actually on a walk this morning and I was kind of thinking about what I wanted to talk about on today's episode based on what's kind of going on in my life and kind of reflecting on the last few years. And for some reason, I started thinking about the 3 Bs and how this translates to adulthood. And while I wish I could go back to the college days where my biggest concerns were if my outfit struck that perfect balance of super cute and fun, but not too risque, the reality is that in my current phase of life, the 3 Bs have a lot more to do with adulting and a lot less to do with bar hopping. So today's episode is like the 3 Bs, but for big girls. And instead of trying to keep our outfits from being too slutty, we're trying to keep our adult life from becoming too much of a train wreck. And alternatively, if you don't like the 3 Bs, I've heard something similar for putting outfits together as an adult, which basically says you can choose between your hair, makeup, and outfit. You need to have at least 2 of those things looking put together at one time in order to come across polished. So for example, if you're in athletic clothes, but you have nice hair and makeup, you look good. Or if you're in a cute outfit and you've done your makeup, but your hair is a mess, you still look polished. So it's really the same concept, just a little bit more refined for women our age. But again, that's still talking about outfits. So the 3 B's we're going to focus on today, or the happiness equation, and kind of the realms of life I think that you need to have under control in order to keep the wheels from falling off in your adult life, are your relationships, your career, and your health. I know there are so many other aspects of being an adult that need to be functioning as intended for you to have your life together. But if you take all of those things and really think about it at a high level, I think anything you need to be successful as an adult could be categorized into one of those 3 buckets. So for example, your finances are a function of your career, your family life is an example of a relationship, and your health could mean anything from your mental health to your exercise regimen. And so basically my argument here is between career, relationships, and health, you need to have at least 2 of those things together to be a functioning adult, feel like you have your life together, and avoid spiraling out of control. And that's not to say that each of these buckets are always 100% in your control. Like sometimes your job is going to suck, and sometimes you're going to get in a fight with your family, or your boyfriend is going to dump you. But in order to keep your whole world from falling apart when those things happen, you need to have at least 2 out of 3 of these buckets under control. And that to me is the happiness equation. I'm going to give you a few examples from my own life. So in 2022, I had a death in the family, which, not to get dark on you, but at that time in my life, my relationships were really challenging. I was dealing with a lot of grief and a lot of loss. So that realm of my life was a dumpster fire, to say the least. But on the flip side, I was crushing it in my career, and I was channeling all my grief and frustration into fitness. So I was actually in the best shape of my life. So overall, I look back on that year favorably, because even though the relationships bucket really, really sucked, I had my career and my health under control. So overall, in terms of my happiness, I was really doing okay, all things considered. Fast forward to 2023, and things had gotten a little bit better with my family. So my relationships were getting a little bit more back to normal, and my career was still going really well. But that year, I was really struggling with my health. So that year was honestly more of a challenge for me, which is funny to say because nothing crazy bad happened in my life, but I was just not in as good of a mental place because that health bucket was not accounted for. And now here we are in 2024. And to be honest, this year, I feel like all 3 of my buckets are a little bit out of whack, which is what inspired me to even record this episode. My career and health have really been on the struggle bus. So even though my relationships aren't keeping me up at night anymore, I feel like my entire life is a disaster because none of my 3 buckets really feel like they're at 100. And to quickly pause and give you a better idea about what types of things fall into each of these categories, your relationships could be anything from your family to your friends to your romantic relationships. Your career could include your job or your personal finances, and your health includes your body image, exercise habits, and nutrition. And those are just a few examples. I'm sure in your life there will be different things that come to mind, but overall, I want you to think of these 3 categories as your happiness equation and give yourself a little happiness report card. Identify how you're doing in each of these categories, and then give yourself action items for how you can control the things within those categories you can control, and then give yourself grace for the things that you can't. So if you're listening to this episode, my action item for you for this week is to give yourself a little report card in these categories and choose 2 that you want to invest time in improving, and then let go of the one that may be causing you stress but is out of your control. And I don't know, I just really like the idea of thinking about happiness as an equation, because oftentimes happiness can seem like such an intangible or hard to capture thing. So when you think about it as an equation and really just the sum of a set of inputs, by controlling those inputs, you can ultimately have a better output and live a happier life, even if certain circumstances in your life aren't changeable right now.
Have you ever wondered what's in your tampon? I know I did. When I first read the ingredients on the back of the box of the brand I was using, I was shocked at what I was putting into my body. Lola was founded on the principle that women should know exactly what materials they are putting into their bodies. Lola offers a range of period and sexual wellness products designed with you in mind. No mystery ingredients, no toxins, no dyes, all gynecologist approved. For flows that ebb and flow, Lola's best-selling compact plastic applicator tampons are made with 100% organic cotton and come come in a wide range of absorbencies, from light to super plus, so you can customize to suit your individual needs. And for those looking to bring a little oomph to the bedroom, Lola has you covered with sex essentials designed for peace of mind. In fact, Lola is the only sexual wellness line approved by gynecologists, including natural condoms, hypoallergenic lube, and much more. As someone who used to be perpetually unprepared for my period, having my tampons delivered every month has been a total game changer. No more frantic dashes to the pharmacy. With Lola, I always have the perfect absorbencies at my fingertips, ensuring my period is no mess, no stress. Ready to level up your period game? Head to mylola.com now and use code MONDAY for an exclusive 20% off your order.
Okay, so I'm going to give you an example of my report card right now because, as I mentioned, my life here in 2024 is a hot freaking mess. So let's spend some time breaking that down by category to see what the heck is going on and how I can improve it. So starting off with relationships. Thankfully, relationships are pretty much the only thing that I don't have to worry about in my life right now, particularly regarding my relationship with Andrew. He is just such a blessing to me and really just my dream guy. And we are so good and have always been so good. And it's just the one relationship in my life that doesn't cause me stress, I can always rely on, and is just this constant source of support and stability and happiness in my life, which is so funny because growing up, I was that girl who never had a boyfriend. And when I did finally have a boyfriend in high school, he lied to me, cheated on me, basically totally sucked. So based on these experiences, I always imagined that finding the right relationship in a romantic sense would always be challenging for me. And even though Andrew and I have been together for almost 5 years now, it still blows my mind that our relationship is so good. And it's truly the one thing in my life I don't have to worry about. So safe to say, Andrew is carrying the team for me in the relationships category. My other relationships in my life are a little bit more complicated right now. I won't get into the specifics, but in terms of family and friends, those scenarios are a little bit more up and down. I definitely have great family members and great friends that I can rely on, but there's a but. And it's just not quite the same unconditional love and security that I have with Andrew, which is okay. That doesn't mean that there isn't a lot of good there, because there is. But for this reason, I would say the relationships category for me overall is kind of holding on by a thread. And if I had to give it a letter grade, I would give it a solid B. Okay, moving on to category 2 out of 3, which is careers. So the career category for me is one that has typically been pretty smooth sailing, but honestly, in the last 6 months or so has honestly spun kind of out of control. And I know this might come as a surprise to you because this podcast is literally about how great entrepreneurship is and why you should pursue your passions and live a life you love. But don't get it twisted. I never said it was going to be easy. And frankly, things are really hard right now. That's all I'll say for the time being. But I just wanted to give you guys some honesty in that department because frankly, it feels really fake and forced to me to only talk about the good in my career and act like there's never any bad, because that's just not the truth. So instead of a letter grade like A, B, or C, I'm going to give my career category a WTF right now. And honestly, I have no doubt that God has a plan and he will provide, and I'm going to figure it out. But I'm just being honest with where I'm at this particular moment in time. And lastly is the health category, which this one for me has been so up and down for honestly the last almost 10 years. I've spoken about this briefly on past episodes, but my senior year of college, I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism and later found out it was an autoimmune condition. So the last 5 or 6 years of my life have really been dedicated to my health and trying to figure it all out. And honestly, I haven't figured it all out yet. It's been a real war with my body and a roller coaster with so many ups and downs. And right now, I feel like I am on a hard downward turn. I am not at my worst, but I'm very far from my best. And so for this reason, I would grade this category a B. But I'm really excited because later today, actually, I have an appointment with a new functional medicine doctor who I'm really hoping will be able to help me figure some stuff out. So if that's something you're interested in learning more about, let me know and I can do an episode on it. Okay, so that's my current report card. And you may notice that I didn't give a single one of these categories an A. And based on this framework, the goal is to have 2 categories in an A, which explains why my life feels like a disaster right now. So I'm sorry for those of you who came to this episode for inspiration and motivation, but today I just didn't have it in me and wanted to keep it really real with you guys. And while I don't think anything I shared today was crazy revolutionary, it was real and it was honest and it wasn't ultra positive. And for me, sometimes I find when people are really vulnerable about what's actually going on in their life and what circumstances aren't necessarily going their way, it's so darn relatable to me. And it becomes more motivational than the people who are just showing the highlights. So for those reasons, I decided not to sugarcoat it and just give you my real and honest report card for where I'm at right now. And even though things aren't at their best right now, the important thing is that I have a plan. I already told you my plan in the health category with my doctor's appointment later this afternoon. So I'm giving myself a gold star there for controlling the things that are controllable. Another category in my life that I believe is a controllable right now is my career. I don't necessarily have a plan for that yet, but I'm figuring it out. And so my goal is to get those 2 categories, health and career, under control, because for me, the relationships category is not quite as much of a controllable right now. So that's what I have for you today. If you are someone who feels like you are spiraling just a little bit, or your life is just lifing too hard and you're feeling overwhelmed and you're maybe hanging on by a thread, I hope this episode gave you a little glimmer of hope and maybe an action plan on how you can divide up and conquer all of your life's problems by choosing what to focus on and choosing what you can control. I hope this episode helped you. And for those who are hanging in there, I'm right there with you and here to cheer you on the way.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Monday through Sunday. If you're building a career, a business, or any relationships, we know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us.
With that in mind, we would be so grateful if you can spare 2 minutes to rate and review this podcast. Your reviews help spread the message to more people that work doesn't have to suck.
By the way, if you're looking for your community, join us on Instagram and TikTok at Monday through Sunday Pod. We're all about connecting our like-minded listeners together. Let us know if there's anything you want us to talk about by sending us a DM. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you again, and we'll talk to you on the next episode.